Hello guys, how are we all doing? Welcome back to Championship Predictions. It's a midweek special today as we've got EFL Championship games on Tuesday and Wednesday. I know what you're all thinking. Where is Sophie? Where is the one that's actually good at predictions? Well, she's currently in the Isle of Wight, but she's still featuring in today's video as she has sent a video with her predictions. So we're going to pan between the two of us when we get on to the games. Before we do that, these are the scores on the doors. I did actually just about get the better of Sophie last week in the Championship predictions for the weekend, and they are the overall scores on the doors. Let's get straight into some Championship predictions, guys. But first of all, do make sure to hit that like button. The target today is 700. We always seem to just get past 700 likes, so do hit the thumbs up button if you enjoy these videos. Do make sure to subscribe as well to get your fix with predictions for the Championship and Premier League. And for a change, I'm going to let Sophie do the predictions first. Over to you for the Tuesday night game between Bristol City and Plymouth.
For me, it's quite hard to separate the two sides in this one, so I could see this being a draw, but I don't want to sit on the fence here, and I am going to tip the home side to win this 2-1.
I think Bristol City versus Plymouth is quite an interesting matchup. If I had to score both of their starts to the season, I'd probably give them both a 7 out of 10, possibly an 8, maybe more so for Plymouth as well, as they're a team that's just come up. I think they've both made a decent start. They're both mid-table. Plymouth Argyle lost at the weekend, obviously against Preston North End. Bristol City got a 0-0 draw against West Brom. I did back Bristol City to win that game, and I feel like they let me down. I might sit on the fence for this one. I'm tempted to agree with Sophie and hand the 3 points to Bristol City, but there's something about Plymouth Argyle. They're a battling team. They've got some good goal scorers in their team. I think they could walk away with a point. So I'm going to go for a Bristol City 1, Plymouth Argyle 1 prediction for this one. I'm going to sit on the fence for this one. I think it could be an interesting game. Bristol City and Plymouth Argyle fans, do share your thoughts down below on that one. Next up, we have got Cardiff City versus Coventry City. And Sophie sent me a video with 11 predictions. The one game she forgot to record her prediction for was unbelievably our own team, Coventry City. She has let me know what her prediction is since then. She's gone for a 1-1 draw between Cardiff and Coventry. And you know what? Even though she didn't record for this one, I don't really need an explanation because I'm going to agree with 1-1. I can see her reasoning on this one. Cardiff City look alright, to be honest. I'm starting to regret putting them in my bottom 3. They've been picking up some good points. They look better than their rival Swansea, and they did beat them 2-0 at the weekend. They've actually put in some decent performances against some of the top teams in the division as well. Meanwhile, my team, Coventry City, we're not bad, but we're just not amazing at the moment either. We're just down the middle. I did think this would happen this season, where Coventry City might get off to a slow-ish start as our new team starts to gel, and while that's happening, we keep drawing. Yes, it's better than losing, but obviously it would be better to be winning. What I do think is massive though is, how is this drawing run going to end? If we draw a load of games and then lose, then it feels like a pretty bad run. If we draw a load of games and then get a win at some point soon, then it feels like we can maybe describe it as a little unbeaten run, even though Coventry City at this moment in time do just about sit in the bottom half. We're both going for a 1-1 draw on this one. Me and Sophie both went for a 1-1 when Coventry played Hull, and we both got it right. Do let me know your predictions down below. It just feels safe to go for a draw with Coventry City at the moment. Cardiff are no mugs either.
Preston versus Birmingham. Last season I probably would have said a draw. However, this season Preston have got off to an amazing start. They're 5 for 5. They're coming up against Birmingham, who got off to a good start but have seemed to drop off in the last couple of games. So for me, there's only going to be one winner, and that is Preston. They're going to win this 2-0 for me.
This game will be fascinating at Deepdale. Preston North End versus Birmingham. If you rewind back to the start of last season, when Preston were on a little bit of an unbeaten run and they kept getting clean sheets, they weren't being as good as they are this season, but they were on that little bit of a run. The team that stopped them were Birmingham City. They were the first team to score against Preston and the first team to beat them last season. Are Birmingham City going to be the first team to beat Preston North End this season? Possibly. Birmingham City did lose against Watford 2-0 at the weekend. I did go for a draw in that one, and I thought that was going to happen. It was 2 late goals that won the game for Watford. Birmingham, they've been alright. I think you can look at this first 6 games and still say this has been a very decent start to the season. That's only Birmingham's first defeat. Will Preston suffer their first defeat? I'm not going to go for it. Preston North End have been good to watch. They keep grinding out these results. I did back them to beat Plymouth 2-1 and it came in. I'm going to go for 2-1 again. I could see Birmingham maybe getting a goal, but Preston do seem to just keep pinching these tight games, and who knows? I'm not expecting them to win the league or realistically be in that top 2 at the end of the season, but I think this good start is giving them a very good chance of actually finishing the season in the playoffs. Let me know your thoughts on that one down below.
So QPR versus Swansea. Again, another tough one to predict. But I feel like there's been a little bit of a change in form at QPR. And especially being the home side, I'm going to have to lean towards them. But I see it being a low-scoring one, so 1-0 QPR.
I'm going to agree with Sophie on this one. I'm going to go Queen's Park Rangers 1, Swansea City 0. Swansea just very disappointing at this moment in time, and the pressure will start to build on Duff, the new manager. He's not been in there long, obviously only 6 games. It's not a massive amount of time to measure a manager on, but that is the nature of the Championship. If it takes you 7-8 games to get your first win, then the pressure will build. QPR, they did lose to Sunderland. I thought it was silly how when they were 1-0 up, they had that red card with Cole back. It kind of feels like they threw the game away with that. I do think QPR, though, in general, if we're looking at the first 6 games, have been a more cohesive unit. They've actually found ways to win games. They beat Swansea's rivals Cardiff, and Swansea have just come off the back of a defeat against Cardiff most recently. So I'm going to go for QPR to get another win on the board here. I'm going to go Queen's Park Rangers 1, Swansea City 0.
Right, Saints versus the Tractor Boys. This one is a very interesting fixture and I'm looking forward to this one. Southampton have been shipping a lot of goals and Ipswich have been looking very, very strong. So I could see this being quite a tight game. However, I'm just going to have to lean towards the Tractor Boys. They're absolutely flying at the moment. So for me, they win this 2-1.
If this game was 2 or 3 weeks ago, I'd have been really struggling to separate the two. Southampton had a decent start to the season and Ipswich have had a good start to the season. Ipswich's has continued for now. Southampton's good start has shown signs of wobbling. They've conceded 9 goals in their last 2 games and I could see Ipswich getting a couple here. I'm going to agree with Sophie on this one and say Southampton 1, Ipswich 2. Ipswich, just like Preston, keep finding ways to win these narrow matches where there's not a lot between them. I can see Ipswich getting another big 3 points here.
Next up we've got Sheffield Wednesday versus Middlesbrough. Battle of bottom place, this one, isn't it? So both teams are going to be looking to pick up the 3 points here, and they've got to. They can't be settling for a draw. It doesn't really suit either team. I do see one team getting their first win of the season, and that's going to be Middlesbrough for me. I can see them winning this 2-1, but they're going to have to really fight for this one.
This is a massive game down the bottom end of the Championship table. Sheffield Wednesday and Middlesbrough both chasing that first win. Does feel like a 0-0 draw could be appropriate for this one, but I'm going to lean one way and I'm going to go opposite to Sophie at this moment in time. There's not a lot to go on here in terms of positives. Sheffield Wednesday did get a decent draw against Leeds and they did only lose 1-0 to Ipswich, who have been in really good form, but I'm grasping at straws there. There's not a lot of encouraging things there for Sheffield Wednesday and they're not scoring many goals. But I just look at Middlesbrough at the moment and think they're pretty hopeless. I think Sheffield Wednesday might get their first win. I think the home advantage could be crucial here. I'm going to go Sheffield Wednesday 2, Middlesbrough 1. I think the Owls are going to win this tight game down the bottom.
Next up we've got Blackburn versus Sunderland, which again is another tasty game. And I can see there being a few goals in this one. I can see it being a draw as well. However, I don't want to sit on the fence. Recently, Sunderland have really impressed me with just the teamwork they're putting in and really fighting for the points. So I'm going to have to lean towards them. Not taking anything away from Blackburn, as I feel like they're putting a good few performances as well. But I'm leaning towards the Black Cats in this one. So 2-1.
Blackburn versus Sunderland is an interesting matchup. Both come into it on the back of a win in their first game since the international break. And it's back-to-back wins here for Sunderland. Blackburn, meanwhile, they do seem to pick up decent wins every now and then, but they're splattered between defeats as well. It's a little bit reminiscent of the start of last season when Blackburn were winning and losing and winning and losing. So I could maybe see Blackburn going back to losing ways here against a Sunderland team that will want to get 3 wins in a row. Sunderland fans can make a difference. I can imagine there'll be thousands going down to Ewood Park. So I'm going to match Sophie on this one and say Blackburn Rovers 1, Sunderland 2. I think Sunderland are going to climb into the top 6 this week.
Yeah, with Huddersfield versus Stoke, I've changed my mind a couple of times. I could see a 0-0 playing out on this one, as it's a bit of an uninspiring game for me. It's not really that appealing. I am going to back Huddersfield to win though. They've won the last 2. They're looking quite strong. Stoke haven't been that convincing and I see Huddersfield doing it, but a low scoring one for me. 1-0.
That was a little bit disrespectful there from Sophie. I don't think this will be a bad game to watch necessarily. I do think it could be low scoring. I'm going to agree with her on the Huddersfield win, but I'm going to go for another 2-0 win for the Terriers. Stoke City, I'm not sure what to make of them at the moment. They weren't totally useless against Norwich, but they've not been great away from home in general. Meanwhile, Huddersfield Town 2 big wins in a row, and if they win this one, they'll be shooting themselves right up into the top half. So I'm going to go for Huddersfield to win again, 2-0, Neil Warnock to do a job on Stoke City here.
Again, Hull versus Leeds. This is another interesting fixture. I could see this being not a goal fest, but I can see there being goals in this one. Saying that, Leeds looked very, very strong in the last game, and I feel like they've started to hit some good form, and I feel like this is where they could kick on in the season. Hull City are a good team. They've looked good in certain performances. Second half against Coventry, they looked very, very good. But I don't see them being, even the home side, I don't see them being good enough to beat Leeds in this one. So I see it being 3-1 to Leeds.
This, for me, is possibly my personal favourite out of the games in midweek here. Hull City versus Leeds United, East versus West Yorkshire. I'm sure there'll be a tasty atmosphere at this one. Leeds United, you've got to give them so much credit for such a professional job they did against Millwall. Leeds United seeming to click, but when we thought that against Ipswich, they followed it up with a 0-0 draw at home to Sheffield Wednesday. Hull City, on the other hand, I did obviously get to see them against Coventry City on the Friday night, and I thought Hull City looked very good in the second half. They looked the better team in that second half and deserved to get their equaliser, in my opinion. Hull City have had a good start. They'll want to stay in that playoff picture for a bit longer. Meanwhile, Leeds United are one of those teams currently outside the playoffs that are going to want to try and break into that top 6 pretty soon. I'm tempted to say a draw here because Hull City have honestly impressed me so far this season, but I'm going to go with Leeds United as well. I'm going to go for a closer game than Sophie. I'm going to say Hull City 1, Leeds United 2. I just think Leeds United, with Daniel Farke and that front line, maybe if they get things right and consistently, they could shoot up the table into that top 3 or 4.
Next up, we've got Millwall versus Rotherham. Millwall, for me, are underperforming. Rotherham are kind of performing the way I expected them to. Not got off to the greatest starts, but I kind of expected that. So could I see this being a draw? Possibly a 1-1. However, I'm going to go back to Millwall. Trusty 1-0 win.
This is a massive game at the Den. Both sides suffered a pretty nasty defeat at the weekend. Rotherham losing to Huddersfield, which is a pretty painful one for Rotherham because that's a team they'll try and want to keep within touching distance of this season as Rotherham look to avoid the drop again. Meanwhile, Millwall embarrassed really 3-0 by Leeds. I don't think Millwall deserved to lose 3-0 necessarily, but it was the quality that Leeds had that seemed to be the difference. Do Millwall go back to winning ways? I think I am going to agree with Sophie here. They need to win this one. If they lose this, then the pressure will be building on Gary Rowett. I'm going to go for Millwall to get a 2-0 win over the Millers here. Millwall are going to win.
Right, so next up we have Watford versus West Brom. Again, same story. 2 teams that haven't got off to the best starts. What I will say about Watford is they're proven that they have got the quality to score. They won late on against Birmingham, obviously with their 2-0 win, and they had that emphatic 3-3 draw against Coventry City. So they are showing that they've got that firepower. It's just they need to kind of get that consistency together. West Brom as well, they are lacking a good run. They haven't hit the ground running, which I kind of expected this season again. So I am going to back the home side here. I'm going to say a close one, 2-1.
Watford versus West Brom is an interesting matchup. Once again, this is one of those games where 2-3 weeks ago my opinion would maybe be different on this. I'd maybe say a draw or possibly West Brom. But Watford maybe just clicking. Against Coventry, they'll feel unfortunate not to have got the 3 points. I thought they looked good in that game. They were pretty ruthless with their chances. And they did get their first win since the opening day, obviously against QPR. They beat Birmingham most recently at the weekend 2-0. A big win for Watford. Can they follow it up here with another home win over a West Midlands team? I think I'm going to go for it. West Brom did get a decent draw against Bristol City, but maybe Watford just starting to click, thinks they might just take the 3 points on this occasion. I'm going to go Watford 2, West Bromwich Albion 1, which would be a massive result for Watford and maybe get them into that top 10.
Right, this game, what a game to finish on. We've got Norwich versus Leicester, 2 teams that are absolutely flying. So for me, it's hard to say whether this is going to be a low scoring one and they're going to cancel each other out, or if it's going to be a bit of a goal fest because they've both got the quality to be putting some goals away. I'm going to back the goal fest. I'm going to back the home side to win. So it's going to be Leicester's only second defeat of the season, but I see Norwich doing it. 3-2 for me.
This game will be fascinating. It's fourth at home to second, two of the favourites to go up this season. Norwich City just seem to keep adding on more points here and there. Like I say, against Stoke City, it maybe wasn't one of their more totally convincing performances, but it's the win that matters. Leicester City, meanwhile, were very convincing as they brushed aside Southampton 4-1, and I thought that would be a draw. So to make up for it, I'm actually going to go for Leicester on this one. I just feel more confident back in Leicester than most other teams in the division at this moment in time. I'm going to go for Norwich to get a goal. I'm going to go Norwich 1, Leicester City 2. I think the Foxes will just do out the Canaries in this one. Massive game. Do make sure to get your championship predictions down below. So then, guys, that wraps up mine and Sophie's predictions. She will be back tomorrow and back on the channel for predictions for the weekend games on Wednesday and Thursday as we look at the Premier League and Championship games coming up next. Do let me know, as I say, your predictions for these massive midweek games. Please do make sure, of course, you've hit that thumbs up button and subscribe button. Some big games coming. Do join us on the channel as we've got loads of live streams coming up over the next couple of days as well. We will see you all in the next one. Peace out.